before we do, I want to talk a little bit about your days at CIM where we overlapped for a year. I understand you studied with the principal second violinist of the Cleveland Orchestra, Stephen Rose, who is now your colleague, which I'm sure is really fun. Um, so, it's really funny because I think the very first time I ever saw Cleveland Orchestra live, I almost immediately gravitated towards Mr. Rose because his presence as a musician was just so magnetic, right? I just, it's almost hard not to see him because his presence is so tantalizing and just so big. So can you talk a little bit about your work with him during your undergrad years and how that time has helped shape who you are as a musician today?
Definitely. And I can totally relate to what you're saying, just seeing how Steve Rose moves in the orchestra and how much of a force he is, how much of a great leader he is. Uh, I was so lucky to study with Steve. Um, he was in a professional string quartet before he even joined the orchestra, the Everest Quartet. So he's got super collaborative approach to playing an orchestra and really plays and listens like he is playing in quartet. Um, so I mean, we all know he's a super sensitive player, and so he worked with me mostly on developing more nuance in my sound, and more contrast. So it's been really amazing to work with him as a colleague and also to see the similarities between what Steve would have me do and what the music director Franz wants to have the string players do in rehearsal, like creating super long phrases, playing as if singing the phrase, um, and just certain articulation. Um, there are just little details where I'll hear Franz say something to the orchestra and it totally makes sense. That's what I heard in my lesson every single week. Um, so it's just kind of everything coming together, and he's such an inspiring force, and I'm so lucky I got to use him. And now work with him.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things I really appreciated about seeing from the orchestra is when they would program Beethoven and play it as a string orchestra, which really speaks to just the clarity and the precision of the string section of the orchestra, where I think it's so unique to almost any other orchestra, where they're so classy with their sound.
No, totally. And yeah, that's funny you mentioned the Beethoven string quartet. We just did an arrangement of Bartok's third string quartet. And
Oh,
it's so challenging, but it's, it just forces you to listen. It's like listening on steroids. It requires so much listening with your eyes, with your ears, with every single sense, and yeah, pretty incredible that an orchestra of that many people can play such a really difficult piece to get together with four people, let alone I don't know, 60,
right.
50.
Right. Well, and I'm curious. So I would assume you were already working on Mr. Rose during undergrad years.
Only a little bit. I sort of after I left CIM, I was kicking myself for not studying literature more um, with Steve Rose. He's such an expert. But I didn't really know I wanted to go into orchestra until I got to Rice. And that's a very orchestra focused school. And that's when I really um, started thinking, like, okay, I really want to be in an orchestra. I have to get serious.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you think were some overarching topics that Mr. Rose really tried to instill in you?
Um, well, a lot of what he worked with me on was phrasing and just making everything sound very natural. Um, at the end of my time at CIM, my very last lesson, I just asked, um, what's what's like the main thing you think I can work on the most? Um, and he said it's really important to play things like you would sing them. That's it's really the simplest way to distill what how a phrase is created and how where the arc is and what to do with it when you're on your own and you're your own teacher. So I think that was the most helpful bit of wisdom he taught me.
When I guess a lot of that would, fall to you, score studying obviously, and just really understanding the music from a positive stance.